Hi there. Welcome to Dreamy Histories channel. Tonight, we're stepping into the sandals of an ancient Egyptian pyramid builder. And trust me, you're about to discover that Hollywood got it spectacularly wrong. Picture yourself right now, lying on a rough reed mat in a cramped mud brick house. The pre-dawn darkness so thick you can almost taste it. When suddenly, the village foreman's voice cuts through the silence like a bronze chisel through limestone. Here's the thing, you're not a slave being whipped awake, but you're also not exactly thrilled about another back-breaking day. And honestly, with the accident rate at these construction sites, you probably won't make it to retirement age without at least one crushed toe or heat-induced hallucination. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments below. Now, let's drift back in time. The darkness begins to lift, and you're already awake, not because of any overseer's whip, but because your body has internalized this rhythm after months of the same routine. Your eyes adjust to the faint starlight filtering through the small window opening, and you can make out the shapes of your family members still sleeping on their mats nearby. The air is surprisingly cool, almost cold, and you pull your rough linen covering tighter for just a moment more. Outside, you hear the first sounds of the day, someone coughing, a baby crying in a neighboring house, the soft padding of feet on packed earth as the earliest risers begin their day. You sit up slowly, your back protesting from yesterday's labor. The reed mat beneath you crackles softly, and you wince, not wanting to wake your wife and children just yet. They'll be up soon enough. But these precious moments of quiet are theirs to keep. Your stomach growls. Dinner was hours ago. Just bread and onions with a bit of dried fish, and your body is already demanding fuel for the day ahead. Standing requires effort. Your muscles are stiff, your joints crack like dry wood, and there's that persistent ache in your lower back that never quite goes away anymore. You're 28 years old, but your body feels ancient. Some historians argue whether the average pyramid builder lived past 40. But standing here in the darkness, feeling every single day of labor in your bones, you're not optimistic about your chances. You fumble for the oil lamp, striking flint against iron pyrite until a spark catches the wick. The small flame throws dancing shadows on the mud brick walls, illuminating the modest space you call home. It's not much, maybe 12 by 15 feet, but it's yours, provided by the state as part of your workers' compensation. The walls are plastered with mud and whitewashed with lime, and your wife has painted simple protective symbols near the doorway: an eye of Horus to ward off evil, an ankh for life. You step outside into the pre-dawn air, and immediately you're part of a river of humanity flowing toward the distribution center. The narrow alleys between the workers' houses are already crowded with men rubbing sleep from their eyes, some still adjusting their loincloths, others carrying the simple tools they own personally, a wooden mallet here, a copper chisel there. The smell hits you immediately, thousands of unwashed bodies, cooking fires being stoked, and somewhere nearby, someone's already started baking the day's bread rations. The distribution center is a massive open courtyard surrounded by storage buildings, and even in the dim light, you can see the organized chaos beginning. Scribes sit cross-legged with their papyrus rolls, reed pens ready to mark attendance and assign rations. You join your gang, the boat gang of Menkore, they call you. One of the rotating crews named after different aspects of the pharaoh's power. The naming system is actually quite clever. though you suspect it's mainly to keep track of who gets what and who's responsible when something goes wrong. The bread line forms naturally, a learned behavior from countless mornings. You shuffle forward with your fellows, holding out your portion bowl, a simple ceramic thing that's seen better days. The bread, when it comes, is still warm from the ovens, round flat loaves about the size of your hand. 3 loaves for the morning. They drop into your bowl with satisfying thuds. It's good bread, made from emmer wheat, though sometimes you find bits of sand or grinding stone in it that make your teeth ache. Historians still debate whether this dental damage seen in mummies was from the bread or just poor hygiene. But you know the truth. It's definitely the bread. Next comes the beer station. And here's where things get interesting. This isn't the beer you might be thinking of. It's thick, almost like porridge, nutritious and only mildly alcoholic. They ladle it into your beer jar, a personal item you guard carefully. The beer is your primary source of nutrition, loaded with calories and vitamins, though it tastes like someone fermented sawdust in dishwater. A workplace joke goes, the pyramids weren't built by aliens. They were built by men trying to work off their beer bellies. While you eat, standing because there's nowhere to sit, the overseers begin their morning ritual. These aren't the Hollywood villains with whips and snarls. They're more like foremen, often promoted from the ranks of workers themselves. They know the job because they've done the job. Your overseer, Amenhotep, is missing 2 fingers from a stone-setting accident 3 years ago, and he's got a way of demonstrating exactly how you should position your hands to avoid the same fate. Right then, you lovely bunch of stone draggers, Amenhotep calls out, his voice carrying over the munching and slurping sounds. Today we're working on course number 43. I need 20 men on the hauling teams, 15 on the ramps, 10 on water duty. And yes, Kenti, that means you're finally off latrine duty. Stop grinning like a baboon. The assignments are strategic. Despite what some romantic historians claim about these being purely volunteer workers, there's definitely a pecking order. Skilled masons get the technical work, naturally. Strong young men like yourself usually end up on the hauling teams. Older workers might be assigned to rope making or water carrying. And then there's always a few unfortunates who drew the short straw for latrine duty. Someone has to maintain the communal facilities for 3,000 workers. And let's just say it's not a job that earns you many dinner invitations. The sun hasn't even cleared the horizon when you begin the journey to the pyramid site. And already the temperature is climbing. You join the stream of workers heading north. Some lucky enough to catch rides on supply boats. But most, like you, are walking. The path is worn smooth by millions of footsteps, a permanent scar on the landscape that archaeologists would later puzzle over. Your gang moves together, a flowing mass of sun-darkened skin and white linen kilts, the morning bread sitting heavy in your stomach. The walk takes nearly an hour, and it's actually one of the better parts of your day. The Nile is on your right, its waters still dark in the early light. Occasional fishing boats drifting past with their triangular sails, catching the first breeze. Flocks of ibis rise from the reeds as your group passes, their calls mixing with the steady rhythm of hundreds of sandaled feet on packed earth. Someone starts a walking song, nothing formal, just a rhythmic chant about a crocodile who fell in love with a hippo. It's stupid, but it makes the miles pass easier. You notice the new workers immediately. They walk differently, still fighting the sand instead of flowing with it, their skin not yet turned to leather by the sun. Poor bastards. You remember your first week, how the sand worked its way into every crevice of your body, how your soft farmer's hands blistered and bled, Now your palms are like carved wood, your feet tough as ox hide. Evolution happens fast when your survival depends on it. The boats carrying stone pass you on the river, and you eye them with mixed feelings. On one hand, you're grateful someone else is doing the quarrying today. That's brutal work even by pyramid building standards. On the other hand, those boats mean tons of limestone blocks that you'll be hauling up ramps before the day is through. Each boat carries maybe 15 to 20 blocks, each block weighing as much as a fully grown cow. The math is simple and depressing. Halfway to the site, you pass through a checkpoint manned by Nubian mercenaries, their dark skin making your sun-beaten bronze look pale by comparison. They're not really checking for anything specific. It's more about maintaining order, preventing tools from walking off, making sure nobody's smuggling beer to sell on the black market. One of them nods at you, recognizing you from countless previous mornings. "Hot day coming," he says in accented Egyptian. You grunt agreement. When a Nubian tells you it's going to be hot, you know you're in for suffering. The pyramid comes into view gradually. First, just a geometric interruption on the horizon, then growing with each step until it dominates everything. It's only about half finished, but already it's the most massive thing you've ever seen. The morning light hits the exposed limestone facing, and for just a moment, despite your exhaustion and cynicism, you feel a flutter of something like pride. You're building something that will outlast kingdoms, that will still be standing when your great-great-great-grandchildren's names are forgotten dust. Then someone trips and crashes into you, breaking the spell, and you remember that you're just another cog in the pharaoh's immortality machine. The romantic moment passes as quickly as morning cool in the desert. By the time you reach the staging area at the pyramid's base, the sun is fully up, and you're already sweating through your linen kilt. The hauling ramp stretches before you like a mud brick mountain road, and your gang is already forming into position around the massive limestone block that will be your dance partner for the next several hours. The block sits on a wooden sledge, looking deceptively manageable until you get close and realize it's the size of a small shrine. Ropes as thick as your arm extend from the sledge, and you take your assigned position, wrapping the rough fibers around your calloused hands. "Ready, you magnificent bastards," Amenhotep calls out, and without waiting for an answer, starts the pulling chant. Hep, hep, hep. The rhythm is everything. Pull on the wrong beat and you'll throw off the entire line, possibly causing the load to shift and crush someone's foot. Or worse, you've seen it happen. Last month, a new worker from the Delta got his timing wrong. The sledge lurched, and now he's working in the pottery workshop with 9 toes. The first pull is always the hardest, breaking the sledge free from where it's settled overnight. You lean forward, feeling the rope bite into your shoulder, your bare feet seeking purchase on the packed earth around you. 40 other men strain in unison, and slowly, grudgingly, the block begins to move. The wooden runners underneath screech like angry demons, a sound that will haunt your dreams. Here's where the real engineering happens, though the overseer scribes writing their reports probably won't mention it. Young boys run ahead of the sledge, pouring water on the path to reduce friction. It's a delicate balance. Too little water and you're dragging wood on dirt. Too much and you create mud that sucks at the sledge runners. These water boys are usually workers' sons, earning their first copper weights while learning the trade. You watch one of them, maybe 10 years old, carefully rationing his water jar to last the full length of the ramp. Smart kid. He'll make a good worker if he survives to adulthood. The chant continues, hypnotic and necessary. The Pharaoh is mighty. His monument rises. We are his strength. We are his glory. It sounds like propaganda, because it is, but it also serves a practical purpose, keeping everyone in rhythm. Some historians argue whether these chants were voluntary expressions of devotion or forced political theatre. Having your lungs burning and your muscles screaming while shouting praise to the God King who's working you like a draft animal. You can definitively say it's the latter. 20 minutes in, and you're only a third of the way up the ramp. The grade is getting steeper, and you can feel the burn in your thighs. Sweat runs into your eyes, salt stinging, but you can't let go of the rope to wipe it away. Next to you, your friend Kemwaset is muttering under his breath, not the official chant, but his own creative additions about what the pharaoh can do with his pyramid. It's treasonous talk, technically punishable by death, but who's going to report him? You're all thinking the same thing. The block suddenly shifts, the sledge groaning, and for a heart-stopping moment you think it's going to slide backward. The line holds, men digging in their heels, and after a moment of trembling balance, forward progress resumes. These near disasters happen daily, and each time you wonder if this will be the one where the ropes snap, and several tons of limestone go tumbling down the ramp, taking a few workers with it for company. Finally, mercifully, you reach the working platform where the block needs to be positioned. Now comes the delicate part, maneuvering it into exactly the right spot. The master masons take over here, directing with hand signals and shouts, as your gang uses wooden levers and raw muscle to inch the block into position. One finger width too far left or right, and it won't align with the course below. The precision required is mind-boggling, especially considering you're working with tools that would make a modern construction worker weep. The sun reaches its peak and transforms the pyramid site into a furnace. Your morning energy has long since evaporated, and now you're running on pure stubbornness and the knowledge that stopping work means no afternoon rations. The overseer calls for the midday break, and you've never heard more beautiful words. You and your gang stumble toward the shaded areas, precious strips of shadow cast by the pyramid itself, and the temporary shelters erected for this purpose. The shade shelters are simple affairs, wooden poles supporting woven reed mats, creating just enough shadow for workers to escape the sun's direct assault. You collapse onto the ground with your gangmates, feeling the earth's heat through your kilt but not caring. At least you're not moving limestone. Someone passes around a water jar, and you drink deeply, the lukewarm liquid tasting better than the finest Delta wine. Lunch arrives in baskets carried by the provision runners, more bread, some onions, garlic, and if you're lucky, a handful of dates or figs. Today there's also dried fish, salty and tough as leather, but protein nonetheless. You eat mechanically, your body demanding fuel even as your appetite wilts in the heat. The onions are actually the best part, sharp and cleansing. They cut through the dust caking your throat. There's a reason Egyptian workers consume mountains of onions and garlic. They're natural antibiotics, though you just know they keep you from getting sick as often. You hear about the gang working on the burial chamber? Kemwaset asks between bites, his voice lowered conspiratorially. 3 men passed out yesterday. Had to carry them out like sacks of grain. This starts the inevitable round of workplace gossip. Who's sleeping with whose wife? Which overseer is skimming rations? Rumors about the next religious festival when you might get a day off. The gossip is as essential as water. It maintains social bonds and shares crucial information about which work areas to avoid. A shadow falls across your group, and you look up to see one of the site physicians making his rounds. He's checking for heat exhaustion, infected wounds, the usual casualties of pyramid building. His assistant carries a box of medical supplies that would seem primitive by any standard. Honey for wounds, willow bark for pain, various amulets for everything else. You've seen him reset broken bones with nothing but strips of linen and prayers to Imhotep, the god of medicine. Sometimes it even works. The physician stops at your neighbor, examining a nasty gash on his shin. "When did this happen?" he asks. 3 days ago. Your neighbor admits. A chisel slipped. The physician tuts disapprovingly. Cleaning the wound with beer. Yes, beer. Because it's cleaner than most water sources. Before applying a honey poultice. Historians debate ancient Egyptian medical knowledge. But watching this treatment, you're witnessing both surprising sophistication and terrifying ignorance existing side by side. The break is too short. It's always too short. But already the overseers are stirring, preparing to resume work. You take one last drink of water, splash some on your face, and mentally prepare for the afternoon shift. The hottest part of the day is still ahead, and there are many more blocks waiting at the bottom of that ramp. Someone makes a joke about how the pharaoh better appreciate all this effort in the afterlife. And you all laugh, dark humor being another essential survival tool. As you stand, your muscles protest every movement. You're not even halfway through your workday, and already your body is reminding you of its limits. But the pyramid won't build itself, and those copper weights won't earn themselves. So up you go, ready to face the afternoon sun and tons more limestone. The afternoon shift brings a different kind of work, and in some ways, it's worse than hauling stones. Now you're assigned to the finishing crews, where precision matters more than raw strength. The massive blocks you spent the morning dragging into place need to be dressed, smoothed, and fitted so perfectly that a knife blade couldn't slip between them. This is where the real magic happens, where rough limestone transforms into the smooth, gleaming surface that will eventually be the pyramid's outer casing. You're handed a copper chisel and a wooden mallet, tools that feel pitifully inadequate for the task at hand. Copper is soft, and after just a few strikes, the chisel's edge mushrooms and needs resharpening. The sound of metal on stone fills the air, a rhythmic pinging that creates an oddly musical atmosphere. Hundreds of workers tapping away, each finding their own rhythm, the sounds overlapping and echoing off the pyramid's faces. The master mason overseeing your section is a perfectionist named Ptahhotep, and he has the personality of a constipated crocodile. He stalks behind the workers, running his hands over the stone surfaces, feeling for imperfections invisible to the eye. No, he shouts at the worker next to you. Do you think the gods will accept such sloppy work? Start again. The poor man has to rechip an entire section because of a bump you can barely see. Working the stone requires a different kind of concentration than hauling. You have to read the limestone, understand its grain, predict how it will fracture. Strike too hard and you'll take off too much, potentially ruining a block that took hours to put in place. Strike too soft and you'll be here until sunset making no progress. It's almost meditative. If meditation involved aching forearms and stone dust in every pore of your body, the dust is actually the worst part. It hangs in the air like a pale fog, coating everything and everyone. You try to breathe shallowly, but after hours of work, your lungs feel like they're full of sand. Some workers tie cloth over their faces, but in this heat, that just makes breathing even harder. You'll be coughing up grey phlegm for days after this shift. Some historians argue the pyramid builders must have had sophisticated protective equipment. But standing here with primitive tools and no protection, you can confirm they absolutely did not. Suddenly, there's a commotion further along the pyramid face. An architect has arrived. One of the high-ranking ones, judging by his clean linen and the way everyone scrambles to look busy. He's carrying papyrus plans, comparing the actual construction to whatever impossible design the royal architects dreamed up. You keep your head down and continue chipping, but you can hear him berating Ptahhotep about some minute deviation from the plans. These architects are a special breed of torment. They appear randomly, point out problems that don't exist, demand changes that make no sense, and generally make everyone's life miserable. This one is particularly agitated about the angle of the pyramid face. Apparently, it's off by some fraction of a degree that only he can detect. Ptahhotep nods and agrees, knowing full well that nothing will change once the architect leaves. It's all about managing egos and keeping the work flowing. As the afternoon wears on, your chisel work falls into a rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Brush away the dust. Feel the surface. Repeat. Your back aches from bending over the stone. Your hands are cramped around the tools. But there's something almost satisfying about watching the rough surface slowly become smooth under your efforts. You're creating something permanent, even if your name will never be recorded anywhere near it. The social dynamics on the pyramid site are more complex than the actual construction. You're part of a carefully orchestrated hierarchy that would make modern corporate structures look simple. At the bottom are the seasonal workers like yourself, farmers who work construction during the inundation season when their fields are flooded. Above you are the permanent workers, the year-round professionals who know every trick and shortcut. They look at you temporary workers with a mixture of pity and condescension, like experienced soldiers viewing fresh recruits. Then there are the foreign workers. And here's where things get interesting. Contrary to Hollywood's vision of Hebrew slaves building pyramids, wrong time period, wrong pyramids, wrong everything. The foreign workforce is mostly prisoners of war from Nubia and Libya, plus economic migrants from the Levant seeking steady wages. They keep to their own groups, speaking their own languages during breaks, maintaining their own customs. You work alongside a Nubian named Kush, who's been here 5 years and still dreams aloud about his homeland's green hills. The skilled craftsmen form their own exclusive tier. The master masons, scribes, and engineers are like a separate species. They live in better quarters, eat better food, and their children are apprenticed into the trades rather than drafted into hauling gangs. You watch them sometimes, the way they walk with confidence, their tools wrapped carefully in leather, their hands soft except for specific calluses from their specialized work. The gap between you and them feels wider than the Nile during flood season. Above everyone are the overseers and administrators, and these relationships are where the real politics happen. Your immediate overseer, Amenhotep, is decent enough. He works you hard but fair, doesn't skim rations, and knows when to look the other way during extended water breaks. But his superior, a pompous scribe named Senenmut, is universally despised. He's never lifted anything heavier than a papyrus scroll, yet he lectures workers about efficiency while miscounting head counts and creating logistics nightmares. The pecking order extends to everything, even basic facilities. There are separate latrines for different worker classes. The skilled craftsman's facilities are upstream from yours, naturally. The water distribution points serve the permanent workers first, seasonal workers second, and foreigners last. It's not official policy, just the way things work, enforced by subtle social pressure and the occasional fistfight behind the storage sheds. Religious affiliation adds another layer of complexity. The workers who serve in temple rotations during the off-season get subtle preferential treatment. They know the right prayers, wear the right amulets, and more importantly, have connections with the priest administrators who control various aspects of the work site. You've been thinking about joining a temple yourself, not out of deep spiritual conviction, but because those priests get better work assignments. What really binds everyone together, though, is shared suffering and dark humor. When a massive granite block arrives from Aswan, everyone from master mason to water boy shares the same expression of dread. When someone improvises a particularly crude song about the pharaoh's intimate preferences, even the stuffiest scribe might crack a smile. These moments of universal humanity are what make the work bearable. Historians love to debate whether the pyramid builders were motivated by religious devotion, economic necessity, or national pride. Living it daily, you can definitively say it's none of the above. You're here because the alternative is trying to scratch a living from a flood-prone farm plot. The pyramids are built not by willing devotees or beaten slaves, but by ordinary people navigating a complex social system, trying to earn enough to feed their families while avoiding injury, illness, and the arbitrary whims of administrators. It's not glamorous, but it's real. The scream cuts through the afternoon's rhythmic chipping like a knife through papyrus. You turn to see a hauling gang clustered around a fallen worker, and your stomach drops. Accidents are common enough that there's a practiced efficiency to the response. Workers clear space. Someone runs for the physician. Others fashion a makeshift stretcher from rope and poles. You edge closer and see it's one of the younger workers, maybe 17. His leg bent at an angle that makes you wince. A rope snapped. The sledge lurched. And now he's learning the pyramid's price. The physician arrives with his assistant, both moving with the urgent calm of those who've seen this too many times. He kneels beside the boy, hands moving expertly over the injury. Broken, but clean, he announces. Hold him. 4 workers pin the boy down while the physician prepares to set the bone. There's no anesthetic except a leather strap to bite on and the hope that shock will dull the pain. The crack of bone being realigned is audible even over the boy's muffled screaming, and several workers turn away. Bring beer, the physician orders, and someone produces a jar. He pours it liberally over the leg, waste of good beer. Someone mutters, but infection kills more workers than falling stones. Next comes the honey, slathered thick over the wound where bone broke skin. The physician's assistant is already preparing linen strips soaked in tree resin, which will harden into a primitive cast. It's surprisingly sophisticated treatment. Though you notice they're also tying amulets to the bandages, hedging their bets between medicine and magic. While the leg is being wrapped, the physician gives instructions to the boy's gangmates. Keep it elevated. Change the honey dressing daily. If red streaks appear or he develops fever, bring him immediately. He produces a small packet of willow bark. For the pain, chew this and swallow the juice. Willow bark contains what historians would later identify as aspirin's active ingredient, though all you know is it actually helps with pain, unlike half the remedies peddled by temple healers. The boy is carried away on the stretcher, his working days over for at least 2 months, if he's lucky, if wound fever sets in. He'll join the surprisingly large number of workers who enter the pyramid site vertical and leave horizontal. The death rate isn't as catastrophic as dramatic retellings suggest, but it's high enough that everyone knows someone who didn't make it home. You touch the protective amulet at your throat, a simple clay thing your wife made, and get back to work. Later that afternoon, you witness the physician treating more routine injuries. A man with an infected chisel cut gets the honey treatment. Another with clear signs of heat exhaustion is forced to drink water mixed with natron salt. It tastes like drinking the Nile's bottom, but it replaces what the sun steals from your body. A worker complaining of back pain gets a massage with oil infused with juniper berries, which actually seems to help, though the physician also draws protective symbols on his back to release the demons causing the pain. The medical tent is a strange mixture of practical knowledge and superstition. You've seen them successfully set bones, stitch wounds with fine copper needles, and even perform basic surgery to remove infected tissue. But you've also seen them prescribe crocodile dung poultices for headaches and insist that certain injuries can only be healed by sleeping in the temple of Sekhmet. Historians still argue about ancient Egyptian medical expertise, debating which treatments were effective. From your ground-level view, it's clear they know enough to help, but not enough to explain why their remedies work when they do. The sun finally begins its descent toward the western hills, and the call goes up to cease work for the day. You've never heard a more beautiful sound. Tools are collected and counted. Lose a copper chisel, and the cost comes from your wages. The transformation is immediate. Thousands of workers shifting from focused labor to weary trudging, all moving toward the same goal of food, rest, and blessed distance from these stones. The walk back to the workers' village feels 3 times longer than the morning journey. Your legs move mechanically, muscle memory carrying you forward while your mind drifts around you. Similar zombies shuffle along, covered head to toe in limestone dust that makes everyone look like ghosts in the dying light. Someone tries to start a walking song, but it peters out after a few verses. Even communal complaining requires more energy than anyone has left. The village comes into view just as the last sunlight paints the mud brick houses gold. Cooking fires already send smoke spiraling into the evening air, and the smell of bread and stewing vegetables pulls you forward like an invisible rope. Your wife, Nefertiti. Every third woman is named Nefertiti, it seems, stands in the doorway of your house. She takes one look at your dust-caked form and wordlessly points to the washing area behind the house. The washing area is just a small enclosed space with a drain hole leading outside. But after a day at the pyramid, it feels luxurious. You pour jar after jar of water over yourself, watching the white dust turn to muddy streams running down your body. The water is tepid, drawn from the communal well this morning and left to sit all day. But you don't care. You scrub with a rough cloth and natron salt, feeling almost human again as layers of sweat and dust wash away. Clean and dressed in your one other kilt, the work one will need serious beating to get the dust out. You enter your home to find dinner already being served. The main dish is a vegetable stew, thick with lentils, onions, and whatever greens Nefertiti could find at the market. There's fresh bread, still warm, and even a small portion of beef. Where did the meat come from? You ask, surprised. The temple distributed it, she explains. Some festival for a god I've never heard of, but I'm not complaining. You eat in the courtyard with other families from your housing block, everyone sharing the communal meal. This is one of the better parts of village life. The forced closeness creates real community. Your neighbor's wife is pregnant with their third child, and everyone contributes advice and horror stories about childbirth. Another family's son just started his apprenticeship with the scribes, and his father glows with pride even as he complains about the cost of papyrus for practice. Children run between the eating adults, playing games with sticks and balls made from wrapped reeds. Your own son, 5 years old and full of endless energy, attacks his food with enthusiasm before running off to join his friends. You watch him go with mixed feelings. In 10 years, he'll likely be water boy on the same pyramid where you now labor, beginning his own journey through Egypt's great construction machine. As darkness falls, oil lamps are lit, creating pools of warm light in the courtyard. Musicians appear, not professionals, just workers with homemade instruments. Someone has a drum made from pottery and hide. Another plays a simple reed flute. The music is rough but rhythmic, and despite your exhaustion, you find your foot tapping along. This evening ritual of food, community, and music is what makes the brutal days bearable, reminding you that you're more than just pyramid-building flesh. As full darkness settles over the workers' village, the evening's entertainment begins in earnest. The courtyard fills with the sound of clicking dice. The games have begun. You join a circle of men throwing knucklebones, the ancient precedent to dice, betting copper weights you can't really afford to lose. The game is simple. Different sides of the bones have different values. Highest total wins. What makes it interesting is the creative cheating and even more creative accusations of cheating that follow each throw. Those bones are weighted. Khaimwaset accuses after losing 3 rounds straight. I saw you polishing them with fat yesterday. The accused, a mason named Seneb, grins innocently. Would I do such a thing? Perhaps the gods simply favor those who donate to the temple. This starts an argument about whether divine intervention applies to gambling, which somehow evolves into a heated debate about whether the pharaoh himself gambles. Someone suggests he probably bets on which workers will survive the construction season, and nervous laughter ripples through the group. The date wine appears around the 3rd round of dice, and this is where things get interesting. It's not supposed to exist, officially. All dates are for eating or paying taxes, but somehow, enterprising villagers always manage to ferment a batch or two. The wine is sweet, potent, and technically illegal, which makes it taste even better. You take your share from the communal jar, feeling the warmth spread through your exhausted muscles. With alcohol come stories, and these aren't the cleaned-up tales told to children. Old Amenemheb, missing 3 fingers and most of his teeth, launches into his favorite story about the time he saw a worker fall into a partially filled burial chamber and land on what he swears was a cache of golden statues. The overseers had him out of there faster than a cat from a crocodile pool, he says, eyes glinting in the lamplight. Next day, that section was sealed off. They said it was unstable, but I know what I saw. The stories grow more outrageous as the wine jar empties. Someone claims their cousin's friend witnessed secret midnight rituals inside the pyramid, where priests conduct ceremonies to bind demons into the structure. Another swears he's figured out the real reason for the pyramid's exact angles, something to do with channeling the Nile's power during flood season. It's all nonsense, probably, but in the flickering lamplight with wine warming your belly, anything seems possible. Women have their own gathering in another corner of the courtyard, and their laughter frequently drowns out the men's boasting. You catch glimpses of what appears to be an even more intense dice game, with stakes involving everything from cooking duties to choice gossip about whose husband was seen near the foreign workers' quarters. Your wife catches your eye and winks. She's winning. Apparently, the household might eat better this week if her luck holds. A fight breaks out near the wine jar, as inevitable as sunrise. Two workers from different gangs square off over some perceived slight. Maybe one insulted the other's hauling technique, or someone's sister was mentioned inappropriately. The fight is more wrestling than punching. Both men too tired and drunk for serious violence. Others form a circle, placing bets on the outcome while shouting unhelpful advice. The fight ends when both combatants fall over, exhausted, and someone suggests they share the remaining wine as a peace offering. These evening gatherings serve purposes beyond mere entertainment. Information flows with the wine, which overseers to avoid, which work sections are most dangerous, where the best rations can be found. Alliances form over dice games. Marriages are negotiated between beer refills, and the complex social fabric that holds the workers' village together is constantly rewoven. Historians studying pyramid construction often focus on logistics and engineering, but sitting here in the lamplight, you know the real miracle is keeping thousands of exhausted, underpaid workers from simply walking away. The revelry dies down as the night deepens, and a different atmosphere takes hold of the village. This is the hour for spiritual matters, when workers turn from dice and wine to prayers and protection rituals. You make your way to your home's small shrine, just a mud-brick niche holding cheap pottery figures of household gods. Bess, the dwarf god who protects families, grins grotesquely at you. Toweret, the pregnant hippo goddess, stands guard over your wife's birthing corner. These aren't the grand golden statues of royal temples, but they're yours. You light a small oil lamp before the shrine and begin the nightly ritual. A pinch of incense, the cheap kind that smells more like burning grass than sacred resin, sends smoke curling up to the ceiling. You mumble the standard prayers for protection, health, and please gods let me survive another day of pyramid building. Your wife joins you, adding her own requests for the children's safety and maybe a bit more meat in next week's rations. The prayers are formulaic, but the need behind them is real. Outside, you hear others performing their own rituals. The foreign workers have their own gods and their own ways. The Nubians drum softly and chant in their language, while the Levantine workers light different incense and face different directions. Officially, the overseers frown on foreign religious practices, but at night in the village, everyone understands that all gods are worth petitioning when tomorrow might bring a falling stone with your name on it. The real spiritual concern, though, is the pyramid itself. Everyone knows you're building on sacred ground, disturbing ancient powers, creating a massive structure designed to channel divine energy. The accidents aren't just bad luck, they're messages from angry spirits. Or so says the village wise woman, who does a brisk business selling protective amulets and performing cleansing rituals for workers who've had close calls. You've bought your share of protections. There's the Eye of Horus pendant your wife insisted on, supposedly proof against the evil eye. The small papyrus scroll sewn into your kilt contains words of power. You can't read them, but the scribe who sold it swore they were potent. Around your ankle is a cord tied with 7 knots, each one binding a different type of misfortune. Do they work? Who knows? But you're still alive, so you're not taking any chances. The really serious protection happens at the pyramid site itself. Before each new section begins, priests perform elaborate rituals to appease the local spirits and dedicate the work to the gods. You've participated in these ceremonies, standing with hundreds of other workers while priests in leopard skins wave incense and chant in the old language nobody understands. They sacrifice bulls, pour libations, and sometimes spend entire nights performing mysteries inside the pyramid's completed sections. What really unnerves everyone are the stories about what happens inside the pyramid at night. Guards report strange sounds, not just the settling of stones, but voices, footsteps, indefinable presences. Some claim to have seen lights moving through sealed passages. A few workers who've done night shifts inside refuse to go back, speaking vaguely about things that shouldn't be there. Historians debate whether these were hallucinations brought on by torch smoke in confined spaces. But standing here in the darkness, feeling the weight of superstition pressing down, you believe every word. Your personal theory, shared quietly with trusted friends, is that the pyramid is already accumulating power even before completion. All those perfectly aligned stones, those precise angles, the orientation to cardinal directions, it's creating something more than just a tomb. You're not building just a monument. You're constructing a machine designed to transform a dead king into a god. And that kind of work leaves traces. The accidents, the strange sounds, the constant sense of being watched. It's the pyramid asserting itself, reminding everyone that some projects exact a spiritual cost along with the physical one. After the evening prayers, you finally retreat into your home's inner room where your family sleeps. Your wife is already on the sleeping mat, your young son curled against her side, and for a moment you just stand there watching them in the dim lamplight. This, not the Pharaoh's eternal glory, is why you break your body against limestone day after day. Nefertiti opens her eyes and shifts to make room for you on the mat, and you carefully lower yourself down, trying not to wake the boy. "How was the sight today?" she whispers. The same question every night. You give the same answer, still standing. It's become a ritual between you, acknowledging that you made it through another day. She reaches over to touch a fresh bruise on your shoulder where the hauling rope bit deep. Her fingers are gentle, but you still wince. "I'll make a poultice tomorrow," she promises, and you know she will, crushing herbs and mixing them with goose fat like her mother taught her. In the darkness, other sounds filter through the thin walls. Someone's baby cries and is quickly hushed. A couple argues in harsh whispers about money, the universal language of marital discord. From somewhere comes the rhythmic creak of a bed frame and muffled giggling. At least someone has energy left after a pyramid shift. Your own romantic life has suffered since construction began. By the time you stumble home each night, you barely have strength to eat, let alone engage in marital activities. Nefertiti understands, mostly, though you catch her looking wistfully at younger wives whose husbands work less demanding jobs. "I heard the overseer talking today," you whisper, sharing the gossip that might affect your family. "They're bringing in another gang from the Delta region. Might mean shorter shifts if they spread the work around more." She makes a skeptical sound. You both know that more workers usually just means the overseer's push for faster progress, not easier days. Still, it's nice to pretend things might improve. Your son stirs in his sleep, mumbling something about birds. He spent the day with the other village children, watched by elderly women while the adults worked. Soon enough, he'll start helping with small tasks, carrying messages, fetching water, learning the 1,000 small skills that make a good worker. You have mixed feelings about this. You want better for him, maybe apprenticeship with a craftsman. But opportunities are limited for farmers' sons. The pyramid will probably claim him too, in time. My brother sent word from Memphis. Nefertiti continues quietly. He says there's work on the new temple there, steady employment, better wages, stone dust not so bad. This is a conversation you've had before. The dream of leaving, finding easier work, maybe even saving enough to buy a small plot of good farmland. But moving requires money you don't have. And the pyramid work, brutal as it is, provides steady wages and housing. The devil you know versus the uncertainty of starting over. Outside, a dog starts barking, setting off a chain reaction of other dogs throughout the village. Someone yells at them to shut up. Someone else yells at the yeller, and soon half the village is awake and irritated. This is the reality of workers' housing. Thousands of people crammed together. Privacy a forgotten luxury. Everyone living in everyone else's business. You pull the thin linen sheet over your head, trying to block out the noise. Despite the exhaustion, sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind races through tomorrow's work, calculating angles and rope tensions, worried about that new section where the stones don't quite align properly. In the darkness, you reach for your wife's hand, finding comfort in that simple connection. She squeezes back, and somehow that makes everything bearable. The pyramid may own your days, but nights like this, your family close, safe for another day, remind you why you endure. The monthly payday arrives with all the subtlety of a desert storm. You know it's coming when the overseer scribes start acting nervous, checking and rechecking their papyrus rolls, whispering among themselves. The workers know too. There's an electric tension in the air, everyone calculating what they're owed versus what they'll probably receive. By noon, work has all but stopped as gangs cluster together. Representatives chosen to negotiate with the pay scribes. The payment area is set up in the main courtyard. Tables loaded with goods that serve as currency. Copper weights gleam in neat rows. Sacks of grain stand ready for distribution. Jars of oil and beer wait to be allocated. There's even some linen cloth, though you know that's reserved for skilled workers and those with special connections. You and your gang line up. Amenhotep at the front with the official tally of work days, sick days, and various infractions that might reduce payment. Gang of Menkor, 43 men, 28 days standard labor, 2 days double labor for granite work. The pay scribe drones, not looking up from his records. His assistant starts measuring out grain, each scoop carefully leveled. You watch like a hawk. These scribes are known for having heavy thumbs when measuring, and a few missing handfuls multiplied by every payment adds up to serious theft. The promised wages look reasonable until the deductions begin. Minus 3 days festival obligations, minus tool rental, minus medical treatment for Kenti's leg wound, minus, the list goes on. By the time he's finished, your share has shrunk considerably. You step forward to collect your portion. 8 copper deben, a sack of emmer wheat that feels suspiciously light, 3 jars of beer, and a small vessel of oil. It's supposed to last your family a month. This is robbery, someone shouts from another gang's line. Where's the extra ration promise for working through the last festival? The complaint spreads like fire. Soon, multiple gangs are protesting, voices rising, fists waving. The guards start looking nervous, hands moving to their clubs. This is the dangerous moment, when exhausted, underpaid workers realize they significantly outnumber their overseers. Your gang's designated negotiator, an older worker named Hapu, who has a gift for argument. steps forward. Respectfully, honored scribe, our tally shows 30 days worked, not 28, and the double granite days were 3, not 2. He produces a piece of pottery with scratch marks, the gang's own record-keeping system. What follows is a masterclass in bureaucratic combat, with Hapu matching the scribe point for point, referencing previous agreements, invoking precedent, and occasionally threatening to appeal to higher authorities. The negotiation is partly theatre. Everyone knows the scribes skim a percentage, the overseers take their cut, and somewhere up the chain, officials are getting rich on the difference between allocated and distributed wages. But there are limits. Push the workers too far and you risk work stoppages, accidents, or worse. Push the scribes too hard and your gang gets the worst assignments next month. It's a delicate balance. After an hour of haggling, a compromise is reached. 2 extra measures of grain appear. The beer ration increases slightly, and everyone pretends this was the plan all along. You collect your adjusted payment. Still less than promised, but more than the initial offering. It's a small victory, but in the grand exploitation machine of pyramid building, small victories matter. Walking home with your wages, you're already calculating. The grain will make bread for 3 weeks if you're careful. The beer can be stretched with water. The oil is precious for cooking, lighting, and the occasional medicinal use. The copper might buy some vegetables at the market, or you could save it toward what? The dream of buying your freedom from pyramid work. At this rate of saving, you'll be dead before accumulating enough. But still, you wrap the copper carefully and hide it in the secret place behind a loose brick in your house wall. Hope, even impossible hope, is another tool for survival. The Nile's annual flood arrives like a demanding relative, expected, necessary, but completely disrupting your routine. The first signs appear as a subtle rise in the river's level, but within days, the waters are spreading across the valley floor like spilled beer across a table. For farmers, this is the critical moment of the year. For pyramid workers who are also farmers, it triggers a complex dance between construction site and flooded fields. Your overseer announces the adjusted schedule with obvious reluctance. Half gangs only for the next month, he grumbles. You field workers get 4 days on, 3 days off to tend your plots. It's a concession won through generations of negotiation. Even the pharaoh's eternal monument must bow to the rhythm of agriculture. Without the flood's fertile silt, there's no harvest. Without harvest, there are no workers. The mathematics of survival trumps the geometry of pyramids. The journey back to your family's plot takes a full day. Hitching rides on boats heading south, then walking the final stretch on paths now barely above water. Your fields, calling them yours, is generous, since you essentially sharecrop for a temple estate, are already partially submerged. The sight fills you with both relief and anxiety. Good flooding means good harvest, but too much water, too little, or water at the wrong time means disaster. You spend your precious days off working harder than you do at the pyramid. First comes the frantic repair of irrigation channels, ensuring water reaches every corner of your plot. The mud is thick, sucking at your legs, and full of hazards, broken pottery, hidden holes, and the occasional cranky crocodile who's found himself in the wrong place. Your farming neighbors eye each other suspiciously. Everyone worried someone upstream might divert more than their share of water. The actual planting can't happen until the waters recede, but preparation is everything. You check and double-check your seed stores, saved from last year's harvest and guarded more carefully than copper. Emma wheat, barley, lentils, onions, Each crop has its place and time. Your wife and son help. The boy learning the crucial timing that makes the difference between abundance and starvation. See how the water moves, you tell him, pointing to subtle currents. Plant here when it drops, not there. The soil here will be perfect. Between farming tasks, you repair tools, mend the house's flood damage, and try to rest muscles that don't remember what rest feels like. But there's no real respite. The village headman appears with tax assessments, calculating what you'll owe based on the flood's height. Temple officials come by to ensure their share is understood. Everyone wants their piece of your theoretical future harvest. The 3 days back at the pyramid feel almost like a vacation after farming work. At least limestone blocks don't require knowledge of soil conditions, seed depth, and irrigation timing. Your gangmates who don't farm, the permanent workers, listen to your complaints with amusement. Poor farmer, they mock good-naturedly, has to work his own land instead of the pharaoh's stones. Such hardship. But you notice they're careful to maintain friendships with farming families. Come harvest time, they'll be hoping for invitations to celebration feasts. The flood season highlights the fundamental insecurity of your existence. You're balanced between two forms of labor, neither voluntary, both essential. Miss too many pyramid shifts, and you lose your wages and workers' benefits. Neglect your fields, and your family starves regardless of copper payments. Historians often portray pyramid builders as either full-time construction workers or seasonal farmers doing corvée labor. The reality is you're both and neither, caught in an economic system that demands everything and guarantees nothing. Watching the sun set over your flooded fields, calculating whether you can squeeze in another pyramid shift before the next critical farming task. You understand why so many workers simply disappear during flood season. They vanish into the delta marshes or flee south, choosing the uncertain life of a fugitive over the grinding certainty of dual servitude. You won't run, you have too much to lose, but you understand the impulse. Freedom tastes sweeter than floodwater, even if both are ultimately temporary. Death stalks the pyramid site like a patient creditor, and everyone owes. Today it comes for Jehuti, a limestone cutter from your extended gang who miscalculated a fracture line. The block split wrong, a piece the size of a cooking pot catching him in the temple. He drops without a sound, and even before the physician arrives, everyone knows. You've seen enough death to recognize its signature. That particular stillness, the way the body seems to deflate. Suddenly, just meat and bones instead of a person. Work stops in your section as they carry Jehuti away. He was young, maybe 22, with a pregnant wife and ambitious plans to save enough for his own tools. Now he's another casualty of the Pharaoh's immortality project, another reminder that you're all just temporarily animate limestone dust. The priests will say he's gone to the field of reeds, but standing here watching his blood soak into sand, paradise seems like a story told to keep workers working. The irony isn't lost on anyone. You're building the ultimate monument to eternal life, while surrounded by constant reminders of mortality. Every worker thinks about it. What happens when it's your turn? The state provides a basic burial for workers who die on site, but basic means a shallow pit in the desert, a few pottery vessels, and prayers mumbled by a junior priest who can barely remember your name. Compare that to the golden sarcophagi and armies of servants being prepared for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. You've made your own preparations. Of course, every worker has. There's a burial club in the village where you contribute a tiny amount each month. When a member dies, the accumulated funds pay for proper mummification. Well, the budget version. They'll remove your brain through your nose, pack your body with natron salt, wrap you in recycled linen, and if you're lucky, include a few amulets to help navigate the underworld. It's not much, but it beats rotting in the desert sand. The real fear isn't death itself, but dying badly. Crushed so thoroughly they can't prepare your body properly, falling into the pyramid's depths where they can't retrieve you, drowning in the Nile with crocodiles ensuring there's nothing left to mummify. These thoughts haunt your dreams, images of your car wandering eternally because your body wasn't properly preserved. Some workers carry written prayers specifically asking to die cleanly, away from machinery and predators. But there are compensations. Strange as it sounds, workers who die building the pharaoh's tomb gain a special status. You're part of the great work, your life force somehow incorporated into the pyramid itself. The priests promise that workers' names will be remembered, their spirits welcomed in the pharaoh's eternal court. More practically, your family receives death benefits, extra rations, exemption from certain taxes, sometimes even a small land grant. It's not much consolation to a widow with hungry children, but it's something. The village has its own complex relationship with death. There's a woman who specializes in preparing bodies, cheaper than the official embalmers, but skilled enough. There's a scribe who'll write letters to the dead for those who can't write themselves, messages to deceased relatives asking for intercession with the gods, or simply updating them on family news. There's even a thriving trade in second-hand grave goods, items recycled from tombs of those who died without heirs to maintain their burial sites. As work resumes, you touch your protective amulets and try not to think about percentages. How many workers start the pyramid versus how many see it completed? How many bodies are built into the foundation, literally or figuratively? The mathematics of mortality are too depressing to contemplate. Instead, you focus on the immediate. This block, this rope, this breath. Tomorrow you might be carried away like Jehuti, but today you're still moving limestone in a strange way. Building the pyramid is preparation for your own death. Every perfectly aligned block, every precisely calculated angle is practice for the ultimate architectural project, constructing a vessel worthy of carrying a soul through eternity. The pharaoh gets the deluxe model, certainly, but maybe some residual magic rubs off on the builders. Or maybe that's just another story we tell ourselves, another tool for surviving each day's casual dance with death. Either way, the work continues, and so do you, at least for today. The sun sets behind the pyramid, casting long shadows across the construction site as your final shift ends. Your body moves automatically through the familiar motions of tools being cleaned, counted, returned to storage. Around you, thousands of workers flow like the Nile itself, back toward their villages, their camps, their families. The pyramid stands partially complete against the darkening sky, a mountain of human ambition built one impossible stone at a time. As you walk that worn path home one more time, the evening air cools your sun-baked skin, and you allow yourself a moment of something almost like pride, not for the pharaoh's glory or the monument's majesty, but for simpler things. You survived another day. Your family will eat tonight. Your son is learning his letters from a scribe's apprentice, maybe finding a path away from the stones. These small victories against the grinding wheel of existence matter more than all the gold in the royal burial chamber. The stars emerge overhead, those same stars the pyramid's designers claim to be aligning with their precise angles and measurements. But down here in the dust, among the workers trudging home with aching backs and calloused hands, the stars are simpler things: navigation aids, timing markers, distant lights that witness the endless cycle of human labor. Tomorrow will bring more stones, more sweat, more small possibilities of disaster or survival. But tonight, there is bread and beer, the warmth of family, the deep sleep of honest exhaustion. In the workers' village, oil lamps flicker to life in small windows, each one a tiny rebellion against the darkness, each one a reminder that life persists despite the pyramid's hungry consumption of human effort. You quicken your pace, eager for home, for rest, for the brief respite before dawn brings you back to the stones. The pyramid may own your days, but the nights, these precious nights, belong to use.